Alright, 16 days done, 17th day of the video. So, welcome to day 17 of the video series, and today I'm bringing in a topic that all of us are well versed with. It's education. Do we need education? Is there a need for formal education? Does education actually matter? Don't you worry, I've got all your answers. Is education even vital? I'm going to answer your question. So, what is education? Education is nothing but the process of learning something. It can be anything. The process of learning to pick a stone and throw it somewhere is an education. So now that I've told you what education is, there are two types of education, formal and informal. Formal is, of course, the institutional education that we receive, the hierarchical education that all of us go through, or all children go through, or all the lucky children go through, is formal education. Informal education is the other half of education, where we learn by conscience, where we learn by seeing, listening, all those are informal education. And the question here is, does education actually matter? Is education vital? Well, I have a habit of answering all these questions in a different way, don't I? Let us take the case of inverse education. Let us bring in that case study here. What would have happened if there were no education? And this time, luckily, we have an answer living in this world right now, sharing this world just like us, just like every other humans. We have a section of uneducated people. Let us look at their lifestyle and bringing in that case study. We will talk if education is vital or essential to sustain humanity or to bring in happy humanity. Happy, sensible humanity. Sorry for a pause. Sorry for that slight small pause there. Getting back to the topic. So, inverse education. To divide the world into two, on the basis of education, I can divide it into educated and the uneducated. And by the uneducated, I don't mean the dictionary meaning of uneducated, because the dictionary says, or Google says, because my dictionary is always Google, but Google says uneducated education is that section of society which receives lower education, or maybe that section of society that has not educated themselves due to poverty. That is uneducated. Those are uneducated people. But as far as my concern went here, uneducated people or uneducated section of the society or uneducated section of humanity is where people are not even aware of a book or a pen existing. That is my uneducated section of society. So I will be comparing us with these people who have not even not even been aware of an invention or a fact or a discovery called a pen, a pencil, or even a book. And those are nothing but the tribes, the tribal people. And the best example that I can give you here is the tribal people or the tribes of North Sentinel Island of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. A few of us must be aware of that. The most vulnerable tribe, the very wild tribe that attacks anyone who goes closer to the vicinity. They get you killed with bows and arrows. They kill you straight away, no hard feelings. So this is that section of that part of the world where they are entirely secluded from the rest of the humanity. And yes, they have never received any sort of education, nor do they have their own forms of education. So which is why let us look at them. How do they survive without the education or without this factor called education? And that is where I've told you they survive. They use bow and arrows. They hunt. They hunt for their living. The only way they live is by fishing and hunting wild animals. So this is how this section lives. They turned themselves into a survival species. A species that requires survival. On the other hand, look at us. Have you ever felt that humanity is a survival species? No, never. We are not a survival species. We live by ourselves. We live happily. I don't need to survive, or I don't need to strive to survive. I live happily. I'm not surviving myself. On the other hand, to ensure that their species move forward, their humanity or their section of the society, the 100 or 200 people living out there, what is that word? To ensure that they move on forward or keep this humanity or keep this chain moving forward, they need to hunt, they need to survive. And that's where the need for education comes in, my friends. Education has become a vital because as far as the educated people or as far as we are concerned, we are not a survival species anymore. And statistics says their population has been declining decade after decade, which means they will soon go extinct until and unless we support them, which they are never going to accept in the near future. So, having told this, now that I've given you an example of why education is vital, because if you're uneducated, or if not one is educated, if an entire society, if entire humanity on the whole was uneducated, this would have happened to the entire humanity. And that is where education laid the foundation for a civilization to happen. The entire older civilizations, the Harappan civilization, the Indus Valley civilization, the Mesopotamian civilization, all these civilizations, the base that led to the civilization was education, was formal education, right from being children, from being a child to be raised to a man or a woman. It's education what led them, what led the humanity to think differently, to live in a cultured society. So education is the base of science, it's the base of engineering, development, infrastructure, everything that we see, everything. So education is simply everything that you see, that you smell, that you taste, that you feel is education, because everything that you see around is a product of education. If there were no education, we would have never had that favorite burger in your favorite burger joint, because we were supposed to live like the North Sentinels out there hunting. So, having said this, education is vital, but is the mode of education that all of us are going through the right one, or is the methodology that is being used to educate people, especially in India, because I'm an Indian, is that the right way to educate people? Well, that's a topic for an entirely different video. Lots of improvements, lots of discussions to happen, lots of my personal research to go into that and bring it to you. And this particular video, I didn't research for this. I didn't research for the need for education. Because had I researched on this, or had I written down a script on this, this would have been an entirely different video, because my ideas or my perspectives would have been on the 1,000 or 2,000 results that I've seen in Google. But this time, it was my conscience or my pen that did the job for me and got this topic for me. I personally feel, or all of us should personally feel, education is vital, not for an individual, but for the entire humanity as a whole. Education is always vital to keep it moving forward, to live happily, just like all of us. Have a good day. Peace. Thank you.